Hey guys, it's Scott, and I'm sitting here this morning with Heather Wise, certified health coach. And question for you is how much, and I know some of you in this group are in this arena, in this area, you do a lot of work in this space. How many of you though are who aren't in this space think a lot about your gut health, your overall gut health, and how much it impacts your other areas of your health, be it your mood, your mindset, your stress, and anxiety levels? I'm sitting today with Heather Wise, certified health coach, and Heather and I have met recently and gotten to know each other, and I really admire her knowledge. And the few conversations that we've had, she shared a lot of great insight. And we're going to record a relatively brief podcast shortly, but I wanted to jump live on the Create Your Great group with Heather and introduce her to the community and share some of your knowledge with the group. And maybe you can make some other connections here, but also just talk a little bit about what you've done with your book, what kind of research and studies you've done in ways that help really the everyday person. I'm big on that, if you can tell. Like, what are the people who are not in this space think of? I know I have some questions myself that I'd love to ask you today. So thanks for being here with me.
Thanks so much for having me, Scott. This has been a lot of fun chatting with you and talking about my book. So yeah, I'm excited to dive into it.
So Heather's book is called A Gut Feeling. And Heather, actually, so when did you start? Let's talk a little bit about the backstory of the book. When did you start putting that together, or outlining, or even writing the book?
I started writing it about 4 or 5 years ago. When there's this huge burgeoning of research around the microbiome that was coming out, and I'd already been a nerd and I'd studied neuroscience and nutrition in school, so I'd already been following it a little bit. And when I realized that all this new research was coming out, and it was basically explaining like how stress affects our health, how our diet affects our health, and how all these things are interconnected, and how I had resolved a lot of my own health problems at a young age. Now here was finally all of the research basically to support how and why what I did for myself worked for me, and what inspired me to become a health coach in the first place and start a health coaching practice and share those insights with all of my coaching clients and what then worked for them as well. So yeah, it was really this advent of research that was coming out about 4 or 5 years, Scott, that inspired me to write this book.
And you're right, there has been so much more information and research, of course, but information for the general public to know, like things that, I would say, it's probably been about 3 years for me where I first started to hear about the connection between the gut and the brain, and we'll dive into that for a couple of minutes too. But sticking with your story, I know I've gotten a little bit of a sense that you had your own journey that led you to be a health coach and to write a book and share some of your challenges. What are one that you went through? What are 1 or 2 of the things that you really struggled with that have led to you being here today as a coach and helping people with this stuff?
Yeah, so one of the major warning signs that I saw was I had this insatiable sweet tooth when I was younger, when I was in high school and college. And I would crave chocolate cake in the middle of the night. I would crave ice cream, like at all hours of the day, and cookies and cakes, and like anything baked was really my preference. So I saw that as something's wrong with me. Like, why am I craving all this, unhealthy food? And I'd always been a health-minded person. So I really wanted to dive into that and figure out what was going on. But I also, for years had struggled with anxiety and skin conditions and being slightly overweight, among other sort of chronic blood sugar destabilizations and things. So I really wanted to look and see if there was a possibility that all these things could be connected.
And clearly they are connected.
In my own health, yeah. And so that's what caused me to dive in and get into all the research on it in the first place. And I did discover that there is an entire community of bacteria and fungi within our stomachs and our intestines and throughout our bodies that are affecting our metabolism, our immune system, our energy levels, our mood, and our weight, and all sorts of things. So that was really interesting to me.
Is it fair to say that for any ailment we might have, And inflammation is something that I don't think I suffer a lot of that now, but you know what I notice, and I won't go down a rabbit hole, but I have to share this, that I noticed that people that I followed on TV and in the movies and even athletes for years, that not all of them, but a lot of them, they look more inflamed and bloated as they get older. And I always said, like, where does that come from? They don't necessarily like look fat, overweight like here. They just look really inflamed and bloated in the face and in their head and their. So is that? I don't want to make assumptions. Maybe it's drugs and alcohol, but it probably is also food and some of these other gut issues, right?
Yeah, I mean, there is something called metabolic syndrome, which causes this sort of bloated look all over one's body. It's hard to say or diagnose, without looking at each individual.
Right.
But inflammation is a really chronic health problem, and it's implicated in a lot of different health problems in our modern day society. So I do think inflammation is a huge, huge part of like what's gone awry in our microbiome. And when we have an imbalance in our microbiome, then it can lead to these inflammatory responses. So it's one thing that I automatically do with all my health coaching clients is get them on an anti-inflammatory diet, and then we start with probiotics and prebiotics to help balance out the flora and fauna within our gut, so that we can improve metabolism, improve all these systems, and reduce inflammation.
Interesting, yeah. So let's sticking with the book. Let's talk a little. How does the book tie into the work that you do with clients? So does the book outline like say I came to you and said, Heather, I'd like to work with you. Do you, and I'm assuming you probably don't have to read the book if they're working hand in hand with you, but does the book walk people through, here's like a process or a step for the health, your gut, food, other things that you need to do, and you as a coach then kind of guide and supplement? How does that work, the book tie to your coaching work?
So it is a great supplement to working with me. And within my book, I talk about the importance of always working with a health coach, because, of course, I'm sharing my health story and some of the health stories of my clients, but that's not going to be the same story for everybody. So I think a lot of people can learn a lot from what I talk about in my book. And obviously, if you don't know anything about the microbiome, it's a great way to learn about the microbiome as well. But working with a health coach is really going to be the foundation of figuring out what's going on with you specifically. There are some questionnaires and quizzes within my book, so it does serve as a self-help book as well. So it can be used either or, but I find that the people who do both, obviously, read the book and work with me, have the most success.
Yeah, that's great. That makes total sense too. So, sticking with the book too is, let's shift more over to you as a coach. And I love your point about, first of all, recommending that people have coaches. We know all areas of our life, health, nutrition included, in our gut, it's such an invaluable resource. And, what do you tell when you meet somebody? Like, how do you get an idea of where their health is at, and so that you can decide if you're the right health coach? Or maybe another way to ask it is, what can you share with people about what can they do on their end for research to say, what kind of a health coach do I need? Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure. I mean, for me, I oftentimes always have a conversation with a person before we dive into working together, just to examine what their background is, what their health conditions are, what other coaches or therapists they're working with. And oftentimes I'm a part of a team that they're working with to undergo changes in their health and their energy and their overall weight, things like that. So one of the first questions I always ask, obviously, is what their health goals are, and obviously, and what they find are the major obstacles to overcoming those health goals. So I think that, and then of course that gives me insight into whether it's something that I can help them with, or whether it's something that I would refer out for. I mean, typically they come to me because they have gut health problems, or they have a sweet tooth, or they have certain food cravings, or they just want to work with a health coach in general to improve overall health, and they have their own health goals, but they really just need the support to do that, and some of the information.
Is the you mentioned sweet tooth and certain cravings? Is that because I was going to ask you, what's a common characteristic or trait of one of your typical clients? And is like the cravings and sweet tooth? Is that something you typically work with?
Yeah, I think like craving some sort of junk food is a pretty common thing. But it doesn't have to be complete junk food. It could be just like somebody who said, oh, my doctor told me to go off gluten because I seem to have a gluten sensitivity, but I can't seem to do it, right? And I don't know how to go gluten-free. So they need somebody to help them. Or like my doctor told me to stop eating dairy, but I don't know how to do that, or I don't know how to minimize these things in my diet. So it's oftentimes somebody who they already kind of have a sense of what they want to do and they've tried, but they've, had setbacks, or they've, haven't been able to get the outcomes that they want. And so they really just need to work with an expert, with somebody that can help them to do that. And one of the first things that I do is I take it as a dual-pronged approach. One is obviously we change some of the diet step by step, very, very micro steps at a time. And then the other side of it is to help to rebalance this microbiome, because if we're having certain food cravings or we're having trouble changing our diet, it's often and pretty much always because of our microbiome. So we really need to get that into check if we want to be able to control our food cravings.
So where does this book, thanks for sharing all that, by the way.
Yeah.
There's so much to learn, but it's so helpful. A Gut Feeling, the book, and again, I'm sitting with certified health coach Heather Wise, author of A Gut Feeling, and health coach. She works directly with clients. Check her out online. At the end, we'll make sure we give you all the places to find Heather. Let's wind down with this. Where does the book take people? So if they read your book, and you've already given some insight to this, but if they read their book and engage with you, it takes them where? To feeling better moods, better diet. How would you sort of summarize what a gut feeling does for people?
Yeah, I really feel like it helps them to tune into their own bodies and figure out, why they're craving certain foods, so that they feel more in control. So the main takeaway of the book is really just to feel in control of your own health, and to feel like you have control over, your diet, your stress management techniques, things like this that all play together to help improve your own health.
I like that. And seeing that I like to help people take ownership of their career, you like to help people take control and ownership of their health.
Right.
Perfect. Good
Exactly.
synergy there.
Be their own health advocate.
And we need to be, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's great to find people like you to help, but first and foremost, it has to start with us. And no pun intended again, I'm pointing inside because all this stuff's going on inside of our body. So let's share it with people. Where can they find you online?
So you can find me on my website is heatherannwise.com. You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. My Instagram account is Heather Ann Wise. My Twitter is Heather A. Wise. And on Facebook, it's the name of my book, A Gut Feeling. And my book can be found as an ebook, audiobook, and hardcover on Amazon.
Awesome. Yeah, sounds like a great resource. So let's leave this audience as well with a call to action. We all love doing that as coaches too. So what's something that you would share with this audience about something that they can do in the next day or week to really get started, or even just continue to build on something healthy that they're doing around their gut health?
I would do a journaling exercise. I would recommend doing a journaling exercise where you write down something that you did, and then afterwards you write down how you felt afterwards. So it could be going for a walk, it could be going out to drink with your friends, and then after that activity, you sit down and you journal how you feel. And it has to be at least a few hours later, maybe even the next day. You can write about, basically how you feel now and how you feel like that activity contributed to your overall mood.
Sounds good. And I'm a big believer in journaling and writing down how we feel and why we feel that way. It then gives us a lot more clarity on where we need to go. Heather, thanks a lot for sharing. We'll
Thanks
check
so
out that
much.
book, A Gut Feeling. See you
Thanks
all
for
soon.
having me, Scott.
You're welcome.